Since its introduction in 2022, Rule H2, which states that we should allow pedestrians that are waiting to cross roads into which or from which we're turning to do exactly that, has caused a bit of debate. I have done a video on this before, but I'm updating it with a bit more lesson footage to give people that want it the advice that they might need. And certainly throughout the video, we'll be looking at the issue of whether we should or should not necessarily be giving way to pedestrians that are waiting to cross roundabout entry and exits. If you haven't seen me before, my name's James. I'm in Norfolk, a driving instructor. My channel is just about promoting lively debate and helping those that want to be helped. As always, I'm more than happy for people to disagree with me, but do it politely. It's not difficult. So Rule H2 is actually pretty simple, and that's how I try to keep it with my pupils. I try and make sure I teach them the facts and not my opinion. So let's look at those facts. We're going to be using the two official sources of the highway code and the DVSA official guide to driving. So Rule H2, at a junction, you should give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross a road into which or from which you are turning. That is essentially the line that seems to cause the most confusion. If we are turning major to minor, either left or right, or minor to major, left or right, we should be stopping and allowing pedestrians that are waiting to cross to do exactly that. I'll put a few examples on the screen right now, and you can see just from some lesson footage of times we've actually done this. It is advisable not to actively encourage the pedestrians across the road. So if you look at this case here, I don't wave pedestrians across the road, and this pedestrian obviously realized what I'm doing and starts to cross without properly making sure that it is actually safe to cross. And the person coming the other way didn't have the same idea as I did. Let the pedestrians come to their own conclusions. A bit of advice on this based on what I see on the roads. A lot of people post on dash cams saying, oh look, I was trying to give this pedestrian priority and I get beeped. And a lot of the time, actually what it is, certainly when you're doing a left turn, I see people angling the car, starting your turn and then stopping to allow a pedestrian to cross. Realistically, what you should be doing, as is in my case here with my learner, we keep the car very, very straight. We approach nice and slow, so it's very predictable and everyone understands what we're doing. If you do start the turn, you're starting to become less predictable. Also, if you have started the turn and you are shunted from the rear, you're going to be pushed into the side road, the very place that you're actually trying to keep the pedestrian safe. For me, H2, along with H1, has been brought in to try and protect people as we evolve into more and more quiet cars in terms of electric cars, etc. And as I've done a video recently, I feel pedestrians certainly are taking less and less responsibility for their own safety. More and more people wear headphones, etc., which does distract them. So I think these rules have been brought in to try and just keep us all safe. There are going to be cases where it may actually not feel safe to stop and allow a pedestrian to cross. It's your judgment. The rule has been phased in gradually, and a lot of people did criticise this move from the DVSA. I'm quite critical of the DVSA, if I'm honest, but I think this is one thing they did quite well. By moving it in gradually, you didn't have everyone suddenly trying to imply a rule that they actually don't quite fully understand themselves. Obviously, driving instructors have been teaching this for a couple of years now, and we're seeing it more and more on the roads, and more people are doing it correctly. You do need to consider everything. You need to consider the traffic flow, what the person behind you is doing, what the pedestrian themselves are doing, how many lanes are there, is it predictable what you're about to do? But one of the main sticking points and points for confusion seems to be, should we be doing this at roundabouts? I've seen quite a few videos now of people trying to do it as they exit a roundabout, and the traffic following is not exactly happy with that person's action. I do feel this is where some opinions start to take over facts, and that's a dangerous situation. Many instructors, myself included, would have emailed their local test centre, a DVSA representative, and some will have had an email back saying that yes, it is applicable at roundabouts. I myself have one of those from the Department for Transport, and I'll tell you why I'm doing that later. Now, the problem is, this is where the DVSA, I think, are making a bit of a hash of it. They don't seem to all be able to sing off the same hymn sheet. So you will have some test centres that are saying, yes, it is applicable. And as per the case of my enforcement officer that I emailed in Norwich Test Centre, I didn't get an answer of, yes, it's applicable. I got a much more reasoned and sound approach as to how I would approach, but essentially just taking every situation as it comes. And that's how I would do it. So on my letter I got from the Department for Transport, you'll see I've blacked out part, which I'll come back to later as well and explain. But when it says, yes, it's applicable at roundabouts, it's then followed, but we need to consider this, and look at the list, it's just endless. So you're going to very rarely receive actually good opportunities to allow a pedestrian to cross at a roundabout. So does that mean you should never be doing it at a roundabout? No, it doesn't. I'll put a few examples on now of when I and my pupils have decided that actually it is safe to allow a pedestrian to cross at a roundabout, and it kind of just makes sense. But if you look at all the examples, they are mini roundabouts, one lane approaches, and it really does just make sense. I haven't done it on the exit to a roundabout, and I don't think I ever would, to be honest. Just because I would say that you shouldn't do it at roundabouts doesn't mean you never will. Remember what I said in my previous video about pedestrians, rule H1 needs to trump everything. So if you feel that the pedestrian is doing something dangerous, then that may alter your decision making anyway. Now the thing for me, as I did point out in my previous video, is I will always teach off the official sources, highway code and the DVSA official guide to driving. And so when people disagree with what's written in these books, etc., that becomes an opinion. That's not a fact. These are facts. And yes, of course, it's all guidance, etc., but people take that to mean they can just basically pick and choose what they want to follow. But let's look at rule 170, which is road junctions. So this is your sort of T junctions, your Y junctions, your crossroads, stagger junctions, etc. The second bullet point, give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross a road into which or from which you are turning. If they have started to cross, they have priority, so give way, see rule H2. So with road junctions, we've got a very clear reference to H2, and it is telling us to give way to pedestrians crossing or waiting to cross. Very clear. If we then turn to our DVSA official guide to driving, we've got turning, which is junctions turning, and we've got you should give way to pedestrians waiting to cross or already crossing when you turn at a junction. They have priority. That was for turning left. Turning right, we've got pedestrians give way to pedestrians waiting to cross or already crossing the minor road. They have priority. So remember that is turning. So that's really clear again in the DVSA official guide to driving that is when it's applicable. Now we'll look at roundabouts. So we have to go a little bit further on to roundabouts to 184. And if you look through the roundabout rules, there's no mention of giving way to pedestrians. So if rule H2 was intended indeed to be applicable at roundabouts, there would be official advice here that would be telling you to give way to pedestrians that are waiting to cross. But rule 187 is the clincher for me. In all cases, watch out for and give plenty of room to pedestrians who may be crossing the approach and exit roads. So it is quite different actually to the way rule H2 is worded. Watch out for and give plenty of room to, as opposed to rule H2, which says allow pedestrians that are waiting to cross to do so. So that's the official advice that we're being given in the highway code. Then if we go to our second source, because I'm a massive believer, unfortunately people just they'll pick one source, and if it matches with what they're thinking, they'll go with it. For me, always have official sources and have more than one. So we're now on to roundabouts in the official guide for driving. On page 227, roundabouts can be particularly hazardous areas. While negotiating the roundabout, you should be especially aware of pedestrians. In many areas, zebra crossings are located near the entrances and exits. Even if there are no formal crossings, pedestrians may attempt to cross the road at these junctions. Always be aware of pedestrians who may be trying to cross the road. Just be aware of them. That is the official advice from two sources that we're given, neither of them telling us that we should actually stop and allow them to cross. Now, in my letter I got from the Department for Transport, the reason I blanked out the top, the rest of the letter is an absolute carbon copy that another instructor put on a Facebook group, driving instructor group, saying, oh, we meant to be doing this at roundabouts, this is the response I've had, blah, blah, blah. Now, I put a load of information in my email to the Department for Transport and said, this is, in my opinion, there's no official advice that tells me to give way to pedestrians at roundabouts. Can you, if you would like me to be teaching it this way, and if it is applicable at roundabouts, can you point me in the direction of the official source and where it says that this is applicable? So I got the very generic response back that's just, yeah, hit and send. But the two lines that blanked out at the top say this: your email has been forwarded to the Department for Transport. Isn't that funny? The very people that I thought I'd actually contacted, my email was then forwarded to the Department for Transport. So all I've got really is probably HR or admin sending out just this blanket response and not really caring. And you won't be surprised to know I haven't had any further update and that was a long time ago. What my point on this is when you have an email from someone that says they're a test centre manager, they're from the DVSA, that says they're from the Department for Transport, you are only getting someone's opinion. You are not getting fact. And if their opinion is, oh, well, yeah, a roundabout is a junction, so yeah, it is applicable at roundabouts, that isn't going to stand up against these official sources that are not telling us to do it. You're all free to pick your own opinions on how you deal with pedestrians in certain situations. I'm just letting you know the official advice. There is going to be occasions, as I've showed you, where you may feel it is safe to stop at a roundabout and you do it. But as you hear from my learners here, this was one of my previous learners, Alicia, and we came up to this situation and you can hear what she said. Would you stop for the pedestrians or would you keep going?
Keep going, it's roundabout.
Yeah, good, well done.
That's right.
Much safer, isn't it? Yeah, well done, good. And the reason is it's programmed into her that it's a roundabout. She shouldn't just stop for pedestrians. It could be quite unpredictable for traffic that's following if you just randomly stop. They were also stood on the exit. And again, if you look at the pedestrians, they're absolutely no danger whatsoever. They're just stood there. They're fine. Alicia does the right thing, just carries on. No problem at all. If you look at this one, this was another of my learners, Caitlin, and it's a bit of a faster roundabout. And as we exit, there's a couple of pedestrians here stood. And again, they're doing absolutely nothing. They just stood there. And listen to what I asked Caitlin. Wonderful. Should you have let them cross? No. You're absolutely correct. So again, it's kind of programmed into her. She's going to keep an eye on them, but she's not stopping. And I would absolutely agree with that. And to anyone that says that's dangerous, no, it's not. We're keeping an eye on the pedestrian. And that is one thing that you should be considering in whether you stop or not, is what that pedestrian is doing. These are just stood there. Essentially, what my learners are demonstrating there is that they understand the priorities. And it is still, according to the official advice, it is still a vehicle's priority at a roundabout over a pedestrian. The pedestrian doesn't have priority. Now, when you change the priority, that is potentially going to cause confusion. Priorities exist so that we all understand who goes first, who goes second, etc. And we avoid things happening. But as I said, nothing should trump rule H1. So I've done a video very recently where me and my learner were coming up to a traffic island, and there was a lady on her bike with a very young kid riding across, and the kid was in front. And anyone that's seen that video will know that I got my learner to stop the car. It was our priority, but we did not feel safe. That is an example of you need to consider everything. What is the pedestrian doing? And that made us stop. Now, if you compare that, apologies for the dash cam footage here. This is my family car and the dash cam is not as nice as the one I've got, but there's a couple of islands that I go past here. And as you can see, the pedestrians do nothing that makes me want to stop. I'm slow, I'm cautious, I'm keeping an eye on them. But it is, again, it's the traffic's priority over the pedestrians here. So by maintaining that priority, you're actually helping to keep everyone safe. So look, summary, bit of a waffle. The official sources do not advise you to stop at roundabout entrances or exits, but you may find that there are situations that you feel it's safer to do so. And that's your judgment. I'm not telling you what you must do or even what you should do. I'm giving you my interpretation of the advice and how I deal with it with learners and myself out on the roads. And it's up to you how you take that information. My advice, take each situation individually and do what you feel is the safest thing. Everyone going home is the aim. 0 road deaths is the aim. And unfortunately, we're still a long way off that. As I said, happy to have people disagree with me, but if it's a challenge, just be polite. Until the information in the official sources is updated, I won't be teaching my learners that they should be stopping at roundabouts for pedestrians, but we take each situation as it comes.